Enterprise Stories is the weekly radio program that shares the experiences of successful Nigerian entrepreneurs and provides expert analysis of their success factors. Enterprise Stories, business stories of success.
Welcome listeners, my name is Olawale Anifowose. 350 staff, a taxi business, an energy business, and Togolese mechanics. We will connect all this in this week's episode of Enterprise Stories. But before we start, let's take a quick message and we'll be right back.
Let's talk about moving forward. You need a brand new car or a home loan so you can live in your own house, or perhaps a credit card to shop around the world. You've also been thinking about getting finance for your trade. Well, at Stanbic IBTC Bank, we've got all the products and services you need so you can move from where you are to where you want to be. Stanbic IBTC Bank, a member of Standard Bank Group, moving forward.
Good evening, listeners. My name is Bayo Rotimi, your faculty on this edition of Enterprise Stories. Today we will continue with the second part of our teaching on strategic planning, or rather the strategic planning process. Last week we looked at the mission and objectives, and we started a review of the environment, a scan of the environment, and we talked about the internal as well as the external environment. So I'd like to expand on that a little bit. The internal environment essentially is the industry in which you operate. Like we mentioned last week, it is critical that you as a business person understand the dynamics of your industry. You need to do a self-appraisal in addition to an analysis of the industry. So first and foremost, you will carry out an exercise we call the SWOT analysis, which is you looking at your strengths as a business, understanding the key advantages you have. We look at your weaknesses. It is always important that you are as factual as possible when you are carrying out this self-appraisal, because ultimately the objective will be to turn your weaknesses into strengths. That is a cardinal objective. Subsequently, you need to look at the opportunities in the industry and the opportunities in the larger market. And Nigeria is one big bundle of opportunities. We have a large market that are looking to buy and pay for discerning value-adding products and services. So you need to understand the opportunities. What is the government doing? What policy statements are they making? What innovative things are happening globally that will ultimately create opportunities in Nigeria? So it is very important that you understand the opportunities that are inherent inside of your country, inside of your sub-region, inside of your continent for that matter. Ultimately, also, you need to look at the threats. Nigeria, again, like most developing countries, has its own fair share of challenges. So you need to understand what are the things that may take you out of business if you are not aware of the threats they pose and the likelihood that they may crystallize. So you need to understand what are the threats. And ultimately, like I said earlier, in the case of the strengths and the weaknesses, you are looking for how to transform all of those threats into opportunities. So on the one hand, you're looking at your strengths and your weaknesses. On the other hand, you're looking at the opportunities inside of your environment as well as the threats. If you carry out this critical self-analysis, it becomes a lot easier for you to make qualitative decisions in terms of your strategy. It will help you decide which particular market you need to play in. It will help you determine what particular segment of that market you should be selling your products or your services into. So it is critical that there is what we call a segmentation of your market, and you will not really be able to do this until you have appraised yourself, appraised your industry, and appraised the larger macroeconomic environment in which you operate. And the aggregation of all this will help you in the strategy formulation process, which we will discuss in the final part of this series. Ladies and gentlemen, yet again, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to being with you this time next week. Thank you.
Let's talk about moving forward. You need a brand new car or a home loan so you can live in your own house, or perhaps a credit card to shop around the world. You've also been thinking about getting finance for your trade. Well, at Stanbic IBTC Bank, we've got all the products and services you need so you can move from where you are to where you want to be. Stanbic IBTC Bank, a member of Standard Bank Group, moving forward.
Welcome back, listeners. We are now in the Story of the Day segment, and with us in the studio today is Niyi Oguntoyinbo, the Group CEO of Filia Mills. Niyi, you're welcome to Enterprise Stories.
Thank you very much, Wale.
Okay, Niyi, tell us, what do you do at Filia Mills? What's Filia Mills all about?
Filia Mills has evolved to become a group of a number of companies in the last 3 years. We have operations or interest rather in transportation, owning brands like Metro Taxi, Auto Recovery, and we also have interest in agriculture. We have interest in energy as well, alternative energy, basically. I'm sure we'll probably get to talk about what we do as we go on.
Okay, this seems like a whole lot of things that you're doing at Filia Mills. But how did this all start? Where did Filia Mills start from? Where did you evolve from?
We started out as a car dealership so many years ago, in 2003 to be specific. And it started out of an idea that I had then, working back then. And there was a gap in the market. I tried to buy a vehicle myself, and I'd been ripped off. I ended up buying a lemon. A lemon is what we like to call something that is misrepresented. So if the vehicle is accidented or it has an engine problem, people sell it to you like it is in good condition, basically. And it was a very bad experience for me. And I said to myself that, well, this was an opportunity, and I was going to make sure that a lot of people didn't fall into this experience going forward. And at that time, we gave birth to what was Filia Mills, and we started selling used cars. We started out selling cars from under the bridge somewhere in Surulere, and we were squatters at that time in the guy's shop, and we used to bring our customers there and say, well, this was where we operated from. In fact, I remember on one occasion we brought a gentleman there. He ended up buying the vehicle, and the man came from Abuja, and he insisted that I deliver the vehicle to him in Abuja, that I had to drive it to him. So I delivered the vehicle to him in Abuja the following day, and he invited me to dinner, and he said to me, look, Niyi, that I did not believe that I would get my car until you finally got here. That when I looked at where you operated from, I asked myself that, am I so very sure that I can do business with these people? But I mean, that's where we've come from. We also had what we call the service center then, which wasn't a service center. It was just a workshop outside of Ijeshatedo where you had a couple of Togolese people. So we used to go in there. We used to go in there to go and manage them. This was as far back as 2005. So we used to go in there and go and manage them, and explain to them why it was important for them to work in a certain manner so that we could, as they say in EDC, make our customers happy, ensure that they enjoyed the service, and we overcompensated for what we were paid for. And today we have grown from there to having 3 state-of-the-art workshops around the city to serve everybody within that metropolis, and also to have a one-stop service center where a dealership works, where you can take financing, where you can do leasing, and you can do all of that. So it's we're extremely grateful, of course, for how much we've been able to do over the years, but it's also very inspiring to ourselves that we came from the very backside of nowhere, where nobody knew what we were, to what it is that they can touch and people can see and associate with today.
Okay, now it's interesting. From a car dealership, you've gone into energy, you've gone into agriculture. How did those interests come in place after 2005?
Suffice it to say that you cannot succeed at what you're not trained for. And for me, if I were to summarize what I took away from EDC in one sentence, that would be it. Take a model, for example, like legal, basically. I mean, I can't expect that Wale will come and train me on partnerships and legal jargons, as it were. And so one of the things we had in EDC very quickly and very early on was diversify. When you look at the threats in your market, some of those threats were outside of your own control. If a government policy came into play and they said, look, we're going to stop importing vehicles, whether used or new, and Nigerians had to walk or make do with what was available locally, then what it meant was that our business would die instantly at that time. And it was important to look inwards to other areas where there were opportunities. And we were able to spot opportunities first in alternative energy, doing a company called Fleming, where we have the franchise for Triplite. Triplite is the largest manufacturer of power backup solutions in the world. It's an American company. So we have the franchise for West Africa for that. So we do inverters, we do power backup solutions for banks, we help hospitals, basically, and a whole number of all those other businesses. So diversification came naturally, following that class very quickly.
Okay, great. So from doing the energy business and of course the agriculture, how has it been running one of the most successful taxi businesses in Lagos?
I'm actually grinning, Wale. I take that very modestly. It has been challenging. We were very certain from the get-go what we wanted to achieve. We also are very quick to tell people that it took us 2 years to put the first taxi on the road. And that meant that we kept looking at our operational strategy, at our marketing strategy, at our recruitment strategy, and it was important that we get it right from the get-go. And that's what we've done. Even with all of that planning, we've had to change our operational strategy at least 2 or 3 times after getting onto the road. Like I said to people, it is very important to write a business plan, but the business plan is only fantastic until you get on the road. In your business plan, you don't factor in things like fuel scarcity, for example. You also don't factor in things like Occupy Nigeria. For example, nobody would think that, at some point in time, somebody would just say, look, we'll sit at home, we'll shut down the economy. And, you have monies running through that system, interests have to be paid to stakeholders, etc., etc. But it's challenging, it's work in progress, it's continuous. We get better at it every day with the feedback that we get from customers. People have been extremely gracious to us. They've provided feedback. They've told us on areas where we can basically increase on our service level. And we've taken all of that and we've worked with it. And today, as I speak to you, we're in Abuja, very quietly. We're not painted in Abuja. And we hope to continue to expand along those directions going forward. Okay.
I had the opportunity to visit your control room, and I was very, very impressed with the level of technology that you're using, that you've deployed to manage those cars, the taxis that you put on the road. So how significant has technology been in enhancing your leadership in this area of the market?
Our competitive advantage from the get-go was process, technology, then people. So if I was going to put a percentage to it, I'll tell you technology represents for 80% of our ability to stay on our feet. If, as we like to call the control center, if our eyes are down, then we basically can't see. And if they are down for an upward of 24 hours, we're losing income by the go. It's difficult for us to do mundane things like tell you how soon the taxi will get to you, tell how many taxis we have on one side of the metropolis, also tell you simple things like, or even talk to our pilots on the road and say, look, there's a request or there's something going on in this area of the city and they need more taxis in that area, or communicate with them. And without that, it's going to be difficult for us to basically post income at the close of business that day. So technology has been very, very, very important to our success story. Extremely important.
Okay, one of the things that I'm hearing you say, which basically makes me, I find very interesting, is that you've actually called the drivers pilots. And I mean, how does this make them feel? And what level of training do you give your drivers to make them stand out in the market?
We call our drivers pilots because first of all, one of the things we noticed was the attitude of people to basically what they did. And it was important for the man to understand that, look, I'm going to be taking a Wale in my taxi, I'm going to be taking a Mr. X and a Mr. C, and this is the level of service they expect to get. And it was important to bring up the attitude of our drivers, co-pilots, to that level, to see that there was much more benefit in what they did than just being drivers, basically. They are the interface between what we've promised the customer and what the customer enjoys. And they must see and carry themselves in such manner. So it is not just in calling them the name pilot, but also in training them along that direction.
Okay, let's talk numbers. How were you able to get funding or the monies to be able to start this business? And how were you able to also get the money to diversify into the various other businesses that Philly and Moles has ventured?
Suffice it to say that we're very anti-bank loans. In fact, we borrow as a last resort. From 2003 when we started business, 2006 when we opened up our first office for business operations, up until last year, June, Philly and Moles never borrowed a penny from the bank. We had always reinvested everything we made back into that business. So in the time that the business has been operational, all I've taken out of that business is the salary like everybody gets. So at the end of the year, whatever we post as profit, we put it back to help build the capex side of the business. Now, Metro Taxi was the first business that we ever borrowed for. And again, that was what we like to call a finance lease. So we did a contribution, against that. So prudence has been our watchword, and prudence has gone a long way, in helping us ensure that we keep the businesses on track and they grow according to the incomes that they can basically generate, to a large extent. So.
Okay, all right. So we will not quote the figures, but the group of companies of Philly and Moles is turning quite a huge sum of money right now, and you have somewhere around the neighborhood of about 200 staff.
If you count the pilots, we will have close to about 350 to 400 persons.
Okay. Now, how are you able to manage this number of staff?
We have a very strong human resource department. We have somebody who is extremely experienced managing that. We brought in that person around mid last year when it was obvious that after technology, people were extremely important and we needed somebody who understood how to manage people, in that direction. And this gentleman comes with a wealth of experience, over 28 years in the human resource industry. His mind is very fertile. He's helped to ensure that we have a system that rewards, compensates, attracts and keep the best people around. And my role has also changed over the last 2 years, from being the marketing person, the face person of the brand, to become a coach and to become a teacher and a mentor of some sort. So 80% of my day is phone calls to pilots, to people around the office, explaining why this process was important to be done, why it is important to do this and serve the customer, etc., etc.
Okay. In rounding up, I hear you talk about being a coach and of course mentoring a lot of people. One message would you be sending out to people that are thinking of venturing into business?
Confidence is capital. Attitude is everything. Simple.
Confidence is capital. Attitude is everything. Thank you very much, Mr. Niyi Oguntoyinbo, for sharing your story with us today on Enterprise Stories. Listeners, we'll be right back after this short break.
Let's talk about moving forward. You need a brand new car or a home loan so you can live in your own house, or perhaps a credit card to shop around the world. You've also been thinking about getting finance for your trade. Well, at Stanbic IBTC Bank, we've got all the products and services you need so you can move from where you are to where you want to be. Stanbic IBTC Bank, a member of Standard Bank Group, moving forward.
Bayo, you've heard the story. What's your take?
we have listened to yet another inspiring story, this time from Mr. Niyi Oguntoyinbo of Phillies and Moles. Ladies and gentlemen, I think one of the most unique parts of this story is that the gentleman, he thought very big, he had a big vision, but he started very small, literally by the roadside. That is where what has become a significant business started from. And I think that story is something that can be replicated by a number of entrepreneurs today. It is important to have clarity in terms of your vision, in terms of your focus, in terms of the direction of your business. And I think this gentleman had that from the beginning. Like in most cases, businesses are developed or they evolve out of a challenge. And his particular challenge was his inability to get a good quality vehicle at the time he wanted one. And gradually that evolved into a used car dealership and ultimately the company that we have today, which does some significant volumes in terms of brand new motor vehicles. Again, we saw Niyi Oguntoyinbo focus on his environment, and in carrying out his environmental scan, he realized that his current business, the car dealership business, would face some threats as a result of government policy with regards to the importation of used vehicles and the import duties regime on even brand new vehicles. So he decided to alter his strategy a bit, and he decided to diversify into other areas. So as much as possible, though you may have a focus, and it's important to keep that focus, it's also important that you continually review that strategy. And when there is a need to inject some flexibility in the form of diversification, then it makes a lot of sense to do that. So he diversified into another area within the transportation sector, which is the metro taxis. And that is a business today that is recognized as one of the leading players in that field. So again, from a strategic standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, it's important that you are monitoring your business and you have the ability to implement a change as quickly as possible. So ultimately, his diversification strategy was a hedge against the risk that he may run, his car dealership business will run into trouble as a result of government policy. Now, there are a number of critical issues that he mentioned. Another one is regarding the quality assurance. For you to be truly successful in whatever line of business you have chosen to enter, then you must not compromise on service quality. And he's decided that service quality is a major focus, and he has invested a lot of time, effort, and resources to ensure that there is customer satisfaction. That is critical in terms of customer retention and in terms of expansion of your business. As long as your business is a service-driven business, then you cannot afford to compromise on that. He also mentioned three critical points. He said that he was focused on technology, he was focused on processes, he was also focused on people. The combination of those three have formed a catalyst for the growth and the expansion of his business. So again, I recommend this strategy to everybody. The world is increasingly dependent on technology, and any business, any and every single business can rely or leverage on technology to drive them. Now, again, he talked about processes, which means that you just have systems, you have structures, you have an organized way of running and managing your business. He also talked about the people, and he said he invested in good quality human resource management systems. So ultimately, his HR strategy revolves around incentives, it revolves around training of the individuals, it revolves around motivation of the individuals, and the sum total of all of those equal to retention. So ultimately, when staff are adequately incentivized, they are adequately trained, they have bright career prospects, and there is every likelihood that they will remain in the organization and they will be indeed an asset to that organization. Similarly, he talked about his funding strategies. Again, quite a unique strategy. He decided to be very, very disciplined in terms of building a capital base. right? Building a capital base. So he focused largely on internally generated revenues. So outside of the initial equity that went into the business, he also decided that he was going to be ultra disciplined and retain as much of the profit as possible and reinvested same into the business. He mentioned something that was particularly interesting, and he said that all he took out of the business was the salary that he was being paid. Again, that is a lesson to small businesses. Every business owner and manager should place themselves on a salary and receive a salary from the organization. There should be a clear separation between the company's funds, the company's cash, and the company's assets, and that of the individual who may also be the owner and the founder of that business. So it is very important you retain a lot of your profits for the purpose of expanding your business. And the only time he ventured towards commercial debt was when he wanted to expand into the metro taxi business. And that was a business that, again, it was not an outright loan, it was largely a finance lease. So it is important as a small business for you to think about the funding strategy that is critical to your own business. You need to come up with a strategy that your business can manage. If you take on commercial debt too early, before your business has been able to develop a steady stream of cash flows, automatically that business comes under pressure almost from the beginning. So the advice really for small business is start with internally generated cash, start with your own equity, start with investments from close family and friends and such like, and ultimately debt, which also has its own benefits because it imposes certain discipline on you as a business person, but only take debt when your business has sufficient capacity to service that debt. So I think in general summary, there are a lot of learning points from the discussion from Niyi Oguntoyinbo, and I recommend his story and his strategy to a lot of us. Your business will definitely prosper if you are able to implement a lot of these strategies. It is really all about a commitment to implementation of the strategy and some prudence, because he also mentioned prudence. It is also important to be prudent in the management of resources. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to being with you sometime again. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Bayo, for the clinical analysis. We've come to the end of Enterprise Stories. Catch you same time next week. Stay blessed. Join the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-African University as we celebrate 10 years of supporting small and growing businesses in Nigeria. Log on to www.edc.edu.ng for more information. For questions and comments, please email edc@pau.edu.ng or log on to Enterprise Stories on nigeria.sme2k.org for useful resources and articles to help grow your business.